we were raised by women who hated men. And by we, I mean pretty much any man that was born after, say, 1975. Our mothers hated men. They still do. They hated men then, and they hate men now. Right up to the point they need to get their air conditioning unit repaired, I guess. Psych? Not even then. Especially not then. Women detest a lowly blue-collared tradesman. Women see that kind of man as being beneath them. You know, that's the servant class. Ew, icky! Don't come near me with those greasy fingers. But seriously, the feminist movement, or cult, whatever you want to call it, it was very successful, and it continues to be very successful even today. When women are outperforming men in virtually every metric, financially, emotionally, whatever, women are outperforming men across the board, yet the feminist movement marches on, ever forward, brainwashing as many girls as it possibly can to grow up to be man-haters so they can perpetuate the cycle of every boy in the world being raised by a mother who hates his freaking guts. Isn't that wonderful? You know, you hear all these talking heads talking about boys are falling behind in college enrollment. Boys are dropping out of the workforce at alarming rates. What is happening to our boys? What's wrong with the boys? They're scrambling to figure out what possibly could have happened to make men think that it's not even worth it to participate in society. And they're scrambling to figure this out, and it's just like, I wonder what it could be. Could it be, perhaps, that when boys go to school, all of the quote-unquote progressive female teachers are drilling it into their heads that men are bad and women are good? Could that have something to do with it? Or could it be because men and boys are blamed for everything that goes wrong in society? And the solution to every problem always seems to be get more women involved. Make room for more women. We need girls who code. Okay? Girls who code. That's what we need. Oh no, our once great nation is crumbling. It's tearing apart at the seams. Crime rates are soaring. The economy is tanking. What can we do? What could possibly be done to turn things around? Oh, I know. We need, more women in STEM. Yeah, that's the solution. We need girls who code. More women in STEM. That'll fix everything. It should be obvious to anyone that's intelligent enough to use a microwave. The feminist movement has been so successful at convincing, I guess, every single woman on the planet that men are evil, that most women, not all, but most women, because of their conditioning through society or whatever, most women hate men. They hate them. They literally despise men. So, what do you think is going to happen when these women who hate men end up mothering boys? Do you think they raise a boy to be mentally healthy? Do they teach their boys to have self-confidence and to value strength and decisiveness and adventure and resilience? All of the things that men are supposed to be good at? No, of course not. They try to raise their boys with gynocentric values. They raise the boys as if they're girls. So it's no wonder that so many men these days just say, you know what? I guess I'll just be a woman instead. Because their mothers are raising them like girls anyways. So we have a bunch of boys growing up being molded into men that hate themselves. They have zero self-confidence. They were raised on feminist values, so a lot of times men aren't even able to see what the real issue is. You know, a man will just be simping for ugly, fat girl boss types that these girls just have success handed to them on a silver platter, by the way. But guys will be simping for these chicks, doing everything they can to make sure the object of their affection knows what a good little ally they are, what a good little feminist he is. And of course, they get brutally rejected every time because, as it turns out, despite whatever your man-hating mother had led you to believe, as it turns out, women don't care at all about how well your values align with theirs. Women are attracted to height and handsomeness. That's it. If you're good looking, you will have success with women. If you are average looking or below average looking, then it doesn't matter. You know, you can be as progressive as you want or be as the opposite of that as you want. It doesn't matter. You know, women just don't care. They may at times praise you in the streets. If you got the right values, they may praise you in the streets, but they will never glaze you in the sheets. Or, I guess, let you glaze them in the sheets. That's probably a better way to say it. But either way, we have not even a generation, but we got like at least 3 consecutive generations of men now that are so brainwashed by our man-hating mothers that we can't even perceive anything as it actually is. Most of us, anyways. I know I go back to this a lot, but it's just like Plato's allegory of the cave. Our misandrist mothers just strapped us in our high chairs facing the wall, and they gave us shadow puppet shows where men are always the bad guys and women are always the good guys. And so we grow up hating ourselves and hating manhood and hating everything that is masculinity. And I mean, why not just drop out? Why shouldn't a man just give up and rot? Because a whole lot of us, you know, I'm in a very special, uncommon situation right now where I actually have a girlfriend, my first girlfriend ever at 36 years of age, and I finally have my first girlfriend, but that's a fluke. I still haven't even f***ed her, by the way. And I don't know, I probably won't even get to before she dumps me. But I really don't know about that. I don't know what the future has in store. I don't know how that's going to end or what. But there's a lot of men that are even worse off than I am. I do think it's good to keep trying, you know, keep contributing, keep working on yourself. You know, I do actually believe that, believe it or not. I think you should try to at least make things as comfortable for yourself as possible. You know, don't do it for anybody else. Just do it for yourself. Just try to make your life as comfortable as possible. But I certainly don't blame any man that decides to just give up and drop out. That's how I've been living my life for the better part of the last 10 years. And I think that living that way is a perfectly rational decision. You know, just dropping out of society completely and just leeching off your parents or leeching off disability benefits or whatever if you can get them. That is a completely rational course of action for a whole lot of men these days. No, it's not good to be that way, But if you can't see how that is a perfectly rational, reasonable way for a man to live his life in the 2020s and beyond, then you really must be brainwashed. You really must be. Because it should be abundantly clear to anybody living in this world today that most men, especially those of us that were not blessed with good looks, we don't get much of anything in return for our efforts when we do contribute. I'm not just talking about money and making a living, owning a car and a white picket fence and all that, okay? I'm talking about even just getting to hold hands with a woman and just spend some time having a good, entertaining conversation with a woman that doesn't hate your guts just because you're a man. Imagine just having a conversation with a woman and getting to know a woman these days without starting from a place of the woman automatically assuming that you're a predator before you even manage to say hello. Imagine that. Unless you're good looking, of course, then all the negative assumptions and all the misandrist brainwashing just melts away. A woman could be like, she could have blue hair, covered in tattoos, 4 septum piercings, 3 adopted pit bulls, Elizabeth Warren bumper stickers on her car, and she could be like a self-identified pansexual, non-tertiary gender terrorist, or however the hell they're identifying these days. I can't even keep up with it. But a woman that's got all that going on, when she's talking to me or you, well, let that same woman get approached by a 6'6" tall Sven Chadson with his hunter eyes and his fluffy, permed, full head of hair, and now all of a sudden, she's just a little girl that needs a big, strong man to just come along and whisk her off her feet. Give her 2 minutes of talking to Chad, getting rizzed up, or whatever they call it these days, and all of a sudden, she's taking out her septum rings. She's booking appointments for laser tattoo removal. She's taking her beloved little Pibbles to the animal shelter. Hell, these hoes out here these days, let them get hollered at by a handsome hunk for 30 fucking seconds in the aisle at Whole Foods, and all of a sudden, she'll be logging into social media to remove pansexual from her bio. And she'll start thinking about how she can get sexual with Chad by using a pan to cook him a nice meal. Because, make no mistake about it, man-hating feminist women love to play the traditional gender roles when Chad's around. Generally speaking, of course. Generally speaking. But that's all a bit beside the point. And yes, I realize this might sound hypocritical or whatever coming from me because I am a man with a girlfriend at this point in time. But I will say, I don't know how long it's going to last. I mean, we've been dating for, I guess, about a week and a half now. And we've kissed 6 times total, I think. I haven't touched any melons. I haven't felt, it's like not a lot has happened, okay? So, and I don't know if it will. I hope it will. I'm going to try, but I don't know. So this might sound hypocritical coming from me, but it's a special case. It's just a special case, Truly, I think it's pure luck that this is happening. But whether or not it is, maybe I am a Chad. I don't know. Maybe I'm Chad Light or I'm Chad and I just never realized it till now. But whatever the case, I realize how it is, how this life, this society, this reality, I realize how it really is. Even if not for myself, but for other men that are in the similar position. the sub 5 position that I am/was in for all my life or most of my life. And very few of us in the sub 5 position will ever be in a situation like what's happening in my life right now. For most of us, average or below average looking men, women hate us. They think that we are dangerous predators. They assume the worst about us before even meeting us. And in the cases when we are not seen as dangerous, that's just because they think we're weak. Which, I guess it's actually better to be seen as weak compared to being seen as dangerous, because at least then, if she just sees you as weak, then a woman might try to manipulate you. So if you're weak and stupid as a man, that's actually the ideal situation for a sub 5 man, being weak and stupid, because then you might get targeted by a woman trying to manipulate you for her own gain. And if you're stupid enough, you might actually be able to delude yourself into thinking that you have a real human romantic connection going on with that woman. So I kind of do wish that I was stupid, or I wish I was stupider than I am, because then I might actually believe that my girlfriend likes me for who I am. And I wouldn't be having all these thoughts like, maybe she just wants to try to become an American citizen by using me, and she's never gonna let me squeeze, feel, fondle anything. Maybe. I don't know. But that's not really the topic of this video, or that's not what I wanted to be the topic of this video when I started recording. But I guess, I am gonna give my girlfriend the benefit of the doubt for now, but I still haven't been intimate with her, and she really seems to want me to start looking for a better job, because we've talked about that now, and she wants me to really get at it, really start looking for that job. And overall, she's just not particularly affectionate, or she hasn't been. And if I'm being honest, it's not really looking good. I might be weak, but I'm not stupid, or I'm not that stupid. But we really do have an epidemic of boys and girls who are being raised by women that hate men. A lot of those women are single mothers too, so in a lot of cases, there's literally not even a single man in the child's life at all. But even when the father is around, most of the time, he's probably a self-hating misandrist too, even if it's just subconsciously. Because I have noticed there's a lot of older guys, like older millennials, Gen X, boomers, that these guys act kind of masculine if you aren't paying close attention. They put on a facsimile of masculinity, but deep down, they're just weak and beaten down, and they just act on the behalf of their man-hating wives. So having a man like that for your dad, that's not really much better than having no dad at all. It probably is a little bit better, but it's not much better. If you have a dad that is outwardly presenting as masculine, but your mom wins every single argument, he does whatever she says, she's always right, he's always wrong, he asks her permission before spending even like $20 on himself, you might as well just not even have a dad at that point. Let's talk about daycare for a second, because daycare isn't any better. In fact, it's worse. Daycare is the worst, actually. Because at least if you're being raised at home by your man-hating mother, at least that's just one man-hating woman that's henpecking the ever-loving shit out of you. If you go to daycare, you're probably going to be dealing with even worse. And even if your own mother hates men with all her guts, she'll still probably at least take care of your physical needs decently well. You know, she'll feed you when you're hungry and all that. But daycare is just like, it's basically like starting public school early. And public school is just a gynocentric indoctrination facility at this point. It's really not a good place for boys to be. You know, public school is a self-esteem incinerator for boys. If you were trying to design an institution from the ground up with the sole purpose of turning normal boys into weak, broken men, then whatever you'd be able to come up with would still probably not be as detrimental to a boy's development as the modern public school system. That's how bad public school is. And all of the teachers hate boys just as bad as your mom hates boys and men. So getting out of the house to go to public school or go to daycare, that's not any better than just being raised at home by your mom. It's not any better at all. Because, yeah, the thing I was going to say, your own mother probably at least takes care of your physical needs, like making sure you're well fed and your hygiene's taken care of and stuff like that. But these harlots at daycare, these daycare workers, they hate men and hate boys just like your own mother. But they also probably don't really care that much about your physical well-being. And even if they did, you know, they have 20 or 30 other little babies or kids to take care of. So, you know, daycare is worse. Daycare is the absolute worst. And of course, everything that I'm saying here, if a guy is good looking, you know, he was a cute baby and then he was a cute kid and he grows up to be a good looking man, then for a guy like that, he might not notice too many negative effects of being raised by a mother that hates men, because women do hate men, but they also love men if it's a really good-looking man. And people don't realize this, but how good-looking you are does affect how your parents treat you. And I'm not saying any, like, I don't mean any weird, degenerate crap by that, okay? So don't get it twisted. I'm not saying anything like that. But it's just that if you are a good-looking guy, then you get the halo effect even with people that are not romantically attracted to you, okay? It's not just about romantic attraction. The halo effect is just with everybody you come across. Like, even a 100% hetero man will treat you better if you're attractive as a man. That's just how it works, okay? So if you're a good-looking kid, your parents will probably treat you better than they would if you're ugly. And I don't know, it just makes sense. It seems kind of obvious. And I think if you're watching my channel, then you probably already know that. I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but that's really neither here or there. You know, it's really no wonder that young women are outperforming young men in virtually every metric, because girls get praised for what they do. Like, they get praised for their schoolwork, even if it sucks, just because the teacher sees herself in her. You know what I mean? That know-it-all, progressive SJW lunatic girl in your English class, she gets straight A's on all of her assignments just because the teacher looks at her and she thinks, oh, she's just like me when I was that age. Meanwhile, the teacher looks at your ugly sub-5 face and she just feels repulsion. Even if you're Chad, even if you're super good looking, your feminist man-hating teacher will just take one look at you and she'll be reminded of all the guys that never wanted to be anything more than just friends with benefits. So she'll discriminate against Chad too. At this point, the Western world is pretty much run by women, or it's run for women at least, because there is still a lot of men in positions of power, especially at like the highest positions of power. But everything they do it for the benefit of women. They do it because it's what women want. Everything is set up for women's benefit. If you're a man, the only way you even fit into the equation is if you're attractive enough to make women feel tingly. And that's not most of us. That is only a small subset of men. So for most of us, it just makes sense to drop out. Don't even try. It sucks because I think a lot of guys are in a situation like I am where we realize there's really no point in even trying, but then we also got all this testosterone running through our veins, just making us want to keep pushing forward, even when we're making no progress whatsoever. That's just our biology. And really, it's a curse. It's the curse of ambition that so many men have just because of testosterone. I know that it's useless to try to be successful in everything because I've already tried plenty and it never worked out for me. So I'm pretty sure it's not going to, no matter how much I continue to try. But it's like, I might give up for some periods of time, but inevitably, I always at some point delude myself again into thinking, well, maybe it'll be different this time. Maybe it'll be different this time. And then I put in a little bit of effort. I try something out, and maybe at some times I have like the smallest amount of success, but it's just, it never ends up going well. I mean, that's kind of how things are going right now. I suddenly, I took this opportunity to take this low-paying, wagey job at the car wash, and I ended up having some decent experiences so far. I hung out with my coworker a little bit. We're kind of friends at work. We talk at work, and that's nice. And I somehow met a girl there that we're now dating. Although, like I say, there are some issues there, I think. But, the point is, these are the kind of things that happen, right? It's like I put in a little bit of effort and the universe gives me just enough to think like, okay, maybe it is starting to be worth it. And then it all gets taken away from me. And so far that hasn't happened with all this. Like I still like this girl, apparently, we're still dating, I guess. I haven't got to do all the things with her anything with her really that I want to do. I mean, I have kissed her a few times, so like that's something. It's not nothing. It is something. But yeah, I mean, I do have a girlfriend now, I guess. And as much as I talk about how women are in a cult and most women hate men, that is true. But I do want to say that no group is a monolith. There are exceptions to every rule. And I don't know about the Indian girl yet, my girlfriend. I hope that she's an exception. So far, after more than a week of dating, I mean, it's not much different than my life was before we were dating. Pretty much nothing has changed in my life other than I get a few more text messages. I still haven't been intimate with her, and I don't know if that's even ever going to happen, because if it does, it's going to have to be something that I really put in the effort to make it happen, because I know she's already I don't know. I don't know. And by the way, I'm not gonna be waiting forever. I'm fine with waiting a little bit, but if I do finally get the courage to just make a move, just make some kind of move towards getting touchy, squeezing melons and everything else, all the other things I want to do, if I make a move towards that and I get shut down, if I think that it's definitely not going to be happening ever, then look, I'll do it, I might just text LaFonda at that point. I would break up with the Indian girl first if I was going to do that. I'm not just going to I wouldn't cheat on her. I would break up with her first, but I'm not going to take on the label of being her boyfriend if I don't actually get to do boyfriend and girlfriend activities with her. Okay? So if it gets to the point where I believe that it's definitely not going to be happening, if I shouldn't even say if, when I do finally build up the courage to, or get so frustrated that I do make some kind of move, because I am slowly working up toward getting to that point. When that happens and I make some kind of move, if she just shuts me down completely and I can see that, this isn't going to be happening, then I will call LaFonda or I'll text LaFonda. I don't know if that would even work out. I don't know if LaFonda would, at this point, still be willing, but hopefully that doesn't have to happen. I don't want to go that route. I do like the Indian girl. I've enjoyed time that I've spent with her so far, but I just really if I'm gonna be her boyfriend and she's gonna be my girlfriend, then there are certain activities that we gotta be doing together, or I'm not gonna put up with that. Call me crazy for having a little bit of self-respect, even though I was raised by a woman that hates men, and all my teachers throughout elementary school, high school, and college, they all hated men, and they drilled it into my skull as a young child growing up, and then continually, even as I was an adult, from every angle, I get it drilled into my head that men are bad, men are evil, and that includes you. You're a bad, evil man. So despite all that, maybe it's because I have crazy high testosterone, and that's also why I'm bald as fuck and ugly. And maybe that's why I have the curse of ambition. And maybe that's why I'm often prone to bouts of delusional thinking, delusions of grandeur. Maybe it's just really high testosterone. I don't know. Because I'm pretty good at putting on muscle too. And at the times when I've tried to do that, I did pretty good at it. Not that any woman ever cared, but despite all of this indoctrination that I've undergone my entire life, I do have a little bit of self-respect, a little bit, and it's just enough for me to think right now, if my girlfriend does not let me engage in certain physical activities with her that that couples are supposed to do together, if she doesn't want to do those things with me, then I'm not going to continue letting her say that I'm her boyfriend, and I'm not going to help her get permanent residence in this country if that's what she's after. Hopefully all this ranting is, I'm going to look back on this and think, wow, that was stupid of me to say all that, because actually she's great. Hopefully that's how this all turns out. But I really don't know. Of course, I will update y'all with any important happenings there, you know. And I think what I might do is I might just do like each week, do like a weekly update on how things have been going with her. I'll keep that going at least for like, I already did the 1 week update. I'll do a 2 week update, and I'll probably at least do a third week update, but I don't know if I would continue doing weekly updates if we just continue dating for a long time, because it's like at some point after a few weeks, I guess I pretty much would cease to be a person that anyone would care what I have to say about these things, you know, and I'm already seeing that a bit in my comments. Not that I'm ever going to be blue pilled or red pilled, you know, it's not going to happen. The thoughts that I think aren't changing, but you know, whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about at this point. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy the content, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And really, I do appreciate everybody that listens. Even when you leave mean comments, I still appreciate that you watched. But I like nicer comments better, obviously. Okay, thanks.